This is episode 3 in our Damn Vulnerable Web Application series. In the last episode, we saw how we could use SQL injection on the low level in this environment here to get the users and the passwords from the user database attached to this web application. So in this episode, we are going to increase the difficulty to medium and see how we can use SQL injection to break the newly added security feature. So we'll go into this right here, and instead of low, we'll now switch it to medium. Then we'll go back into SQL injection, and you probably already see some difference. Before we could enter anything just directly into a input field, but now this is drop down where we can select IDs. So if we just pick an ID, click submit, we will only get the value back to us that is like the data attached to this ID in the database. Whereas before we could just enter our SQL injection directly in here. So if we just try to view the source of this, and we have that here. So basically what seems to be the difference here is that now we are of course still getting this ID parameter into the SQL, but the ID is firstly run through this method here where it escapes all the string values. So if we try to use the injection method we had before, so let's see this one here. So we had this select first name from users where user ID equals 1 or it equals this. So let's try and copy this, and then we want to input this. So the way that we get around this static value that is preset for us is just to right click, view page source. Oh, not this one. Inspect element right here, and by inspecting the element we get into the HTML code that is used, and as you see here we have the different options. So if we click on this one, the value here, we can then change this and put in our code here. And just to illustrate that this is working front end, we also change the value that is presented to us. So this is the actual value being sent, and this is the value that we see. And as you see here, we now change this. However, even though that we change this in the HTML, this is of course only changed on our representation of the site, so only in our browser. It's not like you can modify our page for anybody else using the page. So now if we try to submit this, we get an SQL syntax error, and as you see here, it tried to escape all our quotes by putting a backslash in front of it. So we need to get around this newly added security feature, and a way to do this could be, let's see what happens if we just remove these. So inspect element. So since we are using 1 equals 1, it's actually a number and doesn't have to be a string. So let's see what happens if we just take this and remove these quotes right here, since the security feature only took into consideration that you will input a string. So let's do this and then do the same here just for the visual representation. You can also use Verb Sweep to do this and then see the virtual representation there. But in the next episode we will dive into what Verb Sweep is before we start using it. So for now we'll just go with changing the HTML manually. So let's see, now it's changed, and as we see here, since we use 1 equals 1, we don't need to have these quotes, meaning that the security feature of trying to escape all strings is basically means nothing for our SQL injection and our exploit here. So let's see if we can just take our previous exploit where we got the passwords out. So we had this select users equals something, and then we union with this right here. So let's copy this and then go in here again and say 1 union select, and we'll just here do something like this. Users. Yeah, so I forgot that we had the same error as in the previous episode where we actually wrote users. And as you see here, we again are able of getting the username and the hashed password of all users in the database. So even though that the security level got increased from low to medium and a security feature were added to escape all string values, we could use the fact that numbers doesn't need to be encapsulated by quotes for being a strings and then just escape that feature and extract all the information again. So this ends the part where we'll be diving into SQL injection. We will move on now, and in the next episode we will first get an introduction to Burp Suite because we're going to use that in some of the future episodes. So remember to like and subscribe, and then I will see you next time here on Venslove Academy.